Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Conti Smith, and I am excited that you have all tuned in to join us to talk about real estate, mortgages, and family law. We have a dynamic panel put together for today, and I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves, starting with Chris.
I get to go first. Exciting. Hi,
Yeah.
everyone. Chris Hardiman here. I am a local mortgage banker located in Winter Park, Florida. Been doing it now for a little over a decade, manage a very large branch here in Orlando. So we can really service all of your needs, whether you're English speaking, Spanish speaking, whether you speak Portuguese. So we're here for all things mortgage related, and we love where that overlaps with family law, which is how Conti and I met. So here we are. Who do I hand it off to next, Conti?
Let's go to Janine.
All right.
Thank you, guys. My name is Louis-Alcime. I am a real estate agent. I have a small team, a small but mighty team here in Orlando. We service all the central Florida area with anyone that's looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. And I'm extremely excited to be here today with you, Conti, Chris, and Jennifer.
And you're being modest, Janine, because you just got an important award recently, did you not?
Which one?
Which one? I knew that was coming. Janine gets all the awards.
Aren't you one of the top sellers in Central Florida stock?
Oh, yeah, we landed in the top 2% of all agents in the Central Florida area, which is a big accomplishment for us because for a very long time, we didn't see people that look like us, even in the top 500 real estate groups. So to be in the top 2% is very exciting.
Awesome. You're killing it. All right. And Jennifer.
Wonderful. Hi. Thanks for having me today. I'm really excited to speak to everyone today about mortgages and family law and the real estate market in general. I am a fellow attorney. I've known Conti for several years. My practice focuses primarily on real estate, also probate and estate planning. I also have a title company where we do residential and commercial closings. I've been practicing for almost 12 years now. And prior to that, I've been in the real estate industry doing mortgage lending. So I've got a lot of experience, legal side and hopefully on the mortgage and real estate side, just about what's going on in real estate. And so I'm really happy to share that today.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us. As a family law attorney, we are dealing with people who are having to divide their assets and kind of start over and rebuild. So one of the questions that we're getting a lot is, are houses selling? What's the status of the market? How long does it take a house to sell? For a lot of our clients who they have to sell the house, they can't afford to figure out how to get the equity out and split it up, so they have to sell it. Those questions are coming up a lot, and I don't have the answer. So Janine, if you want to start and anyone else wants to chime in, what is the current status of the real estate market? And typically, how long does it take to sell a home in today's market?
Well, it depends. So real estate is really local. So a lot of people are looking at what's going on the national stage and comparing it what's going on in our backyard. It's not the same thing. We are definitely in a shift in the Central Florida market. I feel like we're leading towards more balanced market where a seller can no longer overprice a home and think they're going to get multiple offers. Sometimes if you overprice, you won't even get someone to come in to preview the home. However, at the same token, buyers now have to make a decision on, okay, if the house is priced right, if it's in my desired location, should I move forward? Homes are sitting on the market a little bit longer than usual. So we're seeing, depending on the price point, you're looking at 60 to 90 days. And if you're overpriced, forget it, 6 months or more, right? Because no one's really going to come even look at it. And if it's a divorce situation, depending on how, depending on the flexibility of both parties, it makes it even harder. So I think to answer the question, it depends. If you price it right, we're still seeing properties sell within a couple of days if it's priced right. However, yeah, go ahead, Chris.
No, I was just going to say, and I don't mean to speak over you, but I can mirror that sentiment because right now, more so than it has been in quite some time, it's very much about pricing strategy. And this isn't a plug for Janine, but it is a plug for Janine. Really, it's a plug in general to just work with the right agent. because the agent can give you guidance and advice on that pricing strategy, so you're not that 90-day plus on market listing. And if the agent isn't prepared to come with the data and have an informed conversation and kind of let the seller steamroll them into a pricing strategy that doesn't align with where the market sits today, that's where a couple that's moving, or a soon to not be couple, moving into this part of their life may not be able to move beyond this step, because they'll end up in a tight situation where it's sitting. And that's unfortunate. So it really, pricing strategy right now is more important than it has been in this market in a very long time.
Pricing and presentation strategy is more important than anything else. Like it doesn't matter your location. It's the pricing and your presentation and your flexibility. That is what's driving the market right now.
Yeah.
Right. I can chime in and just, kind of further hit home a couple of points that both Janine and Chris made. So when Janine said pricing, and then also, how you're marketing the property, photos, right? If you don't have the right photos and it doesn't look appealing to someone, they're not even going to come see it, to Janine's earlier point. And with Chris about, making sure that you've got the right strategy and working with the right realtor, I think there takes some education on the part of the seller, them understanding what the balance market means, right? They think that because their neighbor's house sold for X amount of dollars, their house is going to sell for X amount of dollars. And they really need to understand from the buyer's perspective what buyers are looking for, right? So if a buyer can get a 7% mortgage instead of when they used to be able to get a 3% mortgage, how that reduces buying power and why they need to reduce their price to attract more buyers. And I don't think there's a lot of education on the seller side, especially when you're going through a difficult situation like a divorce, when money is going to be a prime topic, right? And so having that conversation on the front end about the pricing strategy is going to be really essential in that divorce situation in general.
Yeah. And not to jump too far ahead, because I'm sure we're going to talk plenty about interest rates, but I will tell you in this current market, because let's be honest, let's just say it, rates are high. They're higher than they've been in some time now. And when you couple that on top of the home price appreciation we've seen in Orlando, it really does create an affordability conversation. And in many instances, we've seen where maybe we're about to have that conversation about a price reduction with a seller. In lieu of that price reduction, we talk about the seller perhaps offering some incentives that we can use on the lending side to perhaps buy that interest rate down lower for that buyer, thereby opening up that affordability pool and maybe being able to get more buyers qualified for that home that otherwise would not have been able to qualify, or maybe they can, and it's just simply outside of their monthly comfort zone for a housing payment. We've seen tons of value there. I mean, there are a lot of seller paid closing costs that are going directly into interest rate buy downs for buyers right now that are making homes go to contract.
Yeah. Chris, keep Chris on the big screen. I have a question. So leading into my question about interest rates, when I have a client come to me and they're like, okay, rent is crazy. I don't want to rent, but I don't know if I can afford the interest rate or whatever else. Tell us if you can more specifically about the interest rates, where we are right now. What's the status of that? Does it make sense to maybe buy now and then refinance later? When should you refinance if the rates drop down? Just kind of give us some general information about that.
Well, I'll tell you before I jump into that, and I will talk about that. The first thing that I always kind of guide a realtor or an attorney or anyone when they have a client come to them and say, I just don't know if I can afford to buy right now. The immediate question is, oh, tell me a little bit more. Who did you consult with that told you that? And the answer is, well, I haven't spoken to anyone. That's just what I believe. Right? 99% of the time, that's the answer. So the first thing you say is talk to a professional, right? Actually have that conversation. The days of doing hard credit inquiries and dinging your credit to go through the pre-approval process are long gone. It's all soft pulls now. You're not even impacting your FICO score anymore to go through the process. So consult with a professional, right? The conversation surrounding, do we rent? Do we wait? Do we buy now? Do we refinance later? It's a difficult one. And of course, look, I'm in the business of selling mortgage loans, so clearly I'm a biased party. But I can tell you, from my opinion, Gone are the days of the double-digit appreciation in home values in this market. You know, we had them during the pandemic. We caught up with the other hot real estate markets in the United States. And now we have expensive homes here. And for me, I'm okay with that. We're back to a normalized home value appreciation, you know, your 3 to 5 kind of annualized figures. But the fact of the matter is home values are still appreciating. The tax benefits of being a homeowner still exist. So when everyone comes to me and they want to have that conversation about, well, rates are high, I'm going to sign a 1-year lease, I'm going to sign a 2-year lease, I'm going to come back when rates are lower, the first thing that I say is you're forgetting the fact that you're going to miss out on all of the appreciation of that property during that time frame, right? So that's what we call cost of waiting. That's the cost of waiting, right? So when they're thinking about doing that, let alone the tax benefits of being a homeowner, and we should get a CPA on this one next time. You know, I'm not a believer. I'm not a believer in renting over buying. I do understand, and you know, it's all over the internet that there are some benefits to the freedom and the flexibility, and you know, there's not the incremental housing expenses. But at the end of the day, the cost of waiting in terms of the appreciation of the home alone that you're missing out on, I don't believe in it.
Yeah, that's a good
Do you want
point.
me to? Do you want me to start throwing out like real rate stuff at you, or you want to wait till later?
Yeah, I think people, I mean, if you can, people want to know because like we want to educate our viewers, we want to educate our clients, and people just don't know. It's overwhelming, I think. So if you can kind of, like, where are we at today? Like if I came to you today and my credit is 670, what are we looking at?
Well, first off, you're looking at probably a government loan at that point. So you're probably talking about an FHA loan, and rates are more favorable on FHA loans. But let's kind of back up and let's sort of talk about how this whole world of mortgage lending works, right? Because at the end of the day, you originate a mortgage, more than likely, forget whether it goes to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Ginnie Mae, another institutional investor. These loans, by and large, are all ending up in mortgage-backed securities, right? That's the way this whole world keeps on turning. And these mortgage-backed securities have investors. And what do investors want? They want to get a return on their money, okay? So that's what it means at the end of the day. Well, how do these investors get a return on their money? Someone stays in the mortgage for a couple years. It doesn't get refinanced. So despite the fact that mortgage rates are high right now, it is the overwhelming consensus of all the economists out there that they're on the decline. They're coming down. And while the Fed funds rate is certainly not the yield on a mortgage-backed security, it is still anticipated to be cut in the September Fed meeting and probably 2 more times after that before the end of the year, quite frankly. So I say all of this because investors don't want to get their loans paid off inside of the next 12 to 24 months. And what they're doing to combat that is they're making it very, very, very attractive to throw a little bit of money at discount points and buy that rate down considerably lower. So if you came to me and you said, hey, Chris, I'm here, you know, all right, let's just I'll use 670 credit score. I don't want to pay any money in discount points. What's my interest rate? I might still throw out something in the 7s. I might, low 7s, but I might still throw something out in the 7s. But then I would say, because these investors are making it so attractive to get that interest rate a little bit lower, so maybe you're in that loan for 2, 3, maybe even 4 years before you refinance, for half a point, which is equivalent to half of 1% of your loan amount, that 7.25 might become a 6.75. And that's a return on investment for discount points that you just don't see in a normalized market, right? Usually a full point may get you a 0.25% in rate. Now we're seeing a market where half a point's getting you half a point in rate. And that is just something that's really unique about this market. I have to tell you, every loan I'm closing right now has a little bit in discount points in it, just because it makes so much sense for the return on investment on the lower interest rate.
Okay, I didn't know that. That was helpful.
I think that's what the general public is missing, because all they're hearing is interest rate is so high. Oh my God, interest rate is at 7%. But on the back end, though, there is additional assistance for you if you choose to pursue becoming a homeowner in 2025. But, you know, the general public is just not privy to that information. And unfortunately, you know, that's why they're still on the sidelines.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll, chime in. I think a lot of people don't even understand the concept, right? So a lot of times people don't even know, what is a discount point? What does it mean to buy down your rate? So they don't even know that there's this ability, if they see this published rate, like you mentioned, Chris, of 7.25, and then you could get it down to 6.75. Well, how does that happen, right? They don't even understand that you can pay the points at the settlement, like at the time you purchase the property, so that your rate is then 0.5% lower over the life of your loan, which gives you a tremendous amount of savings throughout the mortgage finance.
But you know what, Jennifer, to go a step further, if you're working with a good agent, we will negotiate that for you from the seller. So you're not even paying for it. So I think the lack of education is what's keeping people. Is this a great market? No. But is this a market of opportunity? I would say absolutely. You know, and because people are not, educated, they're not willing to make the move because they're so afraid of the interest rates right now.
And before we keep Janine on the big screen, and before we get you off the big screen, let's talk about that. You hear a lot of people saying, this real estate, are all real estate agents the same? I mean, I know the answer, but I want you to talk about what people should be looking for when they're hiring a realtor to help them with selling or buying a home.
No, all agents are not created equal, just to answer that question. But I was reading a survey or an article the other day. It said 81% of sellers believe that they will get their list asking price for their property or more in today's market. That alone tells me that we're not educating people. We're not educating our sellers. We're not educating our buyers. Because the likelihood for 81% people to believe this is just insane to me, considering how much our market has adjusted everywhere. And I think right now it's not the time to feel sorry for your neighbor, for your sister, for your aunt that just got their real estate license and say, oh my God, let me throw you a deal because I feel bad. Right now, more than ever, you need an experienced person on your side, someone that can negotiate for you, someone that's been through this transaction already. They know exactly what to say and what to do to get you on the other side. Do you know how many transactions that fall apart because a new buyer's agent didn't know what to communicate to me to make this go through? Or they, got way too much into their feelings and couldn't proceed with the transaction. So I think right now more than ever, experience matter. Right now more than ever, you should definitely be seeking advice from a professional.
But what if they say, hey, my aunt or cousin, they sold 10 homes in 2021. What do you say to those people?
That was 2021. We're in 2025. The landscape is completely different. It is not the same. Like, I've been doing this for almost 12 years and I'm still learning every day. There are times I go into a transaction, I'm like, oh my God, is that even possible? Right? But, I have amazing people around me that I can ask questions. I couldn't fathom handling some of the transactions that I'm handling now as a newer agent or as someone that didn't have the support. I know we had a meeting the other day and 75% of all agents currently in real estate have not closed a transaction this year. So you need to choose carefully. It's not offensive if you ask the agent, how many homes have you sold last year? How many homes did you sell this year? Especially if you're listing your home in this current market, you want someone that's experienced in this market, not the COVID market, not 2021 where Preston, my dog, could have sold a home. Now you really, really need someone that is experienced, that's going to have different strategies. When the house didn't sell the first 30 days, what do we do next? And someone that's not afraid to tell you, to have these hard conversations. Right now, to be in real estate means you need to be comfortable with having hard conversations with all parties, whether it's the buyer or the seller, because if you're not realistic, I need to educate you to make you understand that this market is completely different than any other market we've been in.
Yeah, and I'd like to tag on to what Janine said there about someone being experienced and asking how many transactions have they closed, last year or the year before, but also what kind of transactions have they closed, right? Conti, with your clients going through, potentially separations, and you're going to have different dynamics than you would a traditional married couple or a single home seller, where you've got to have someone who understands the dynamics of relationships with people going through a divorce, and then also has the relationships with family law attorneys, real estate attorneys, that they know answers to the questions that are going to come up in those transactions, right? You don't want someone who has never done a transaction with a divorce, and because only one spouse was on title, they get it to the closing table and then realize that they need the other spouse to sign off, and no one's had that conversation, right? And then the deal, to Janine's point, falls apart because the buyer didn't know what they needed to know.
Yeah. So keeping with that, Jennifer, another question that I'm getting a lot of right now is, hey, we're going through the divorce. The house that we have, the marital house, is not really selling right now. So I thought the divorce would be done, but it's not, because we're arguing over that. Can I go and buy a new house right now?
Yeah, I get that question a lot also. And I think it comes from a lot of real estate agents that I work with who have someone wanting to list their home and wanting to know, can they buy a new house when they're in the process of a divorce? And yes, you can, but as long as you're legally married, your spouse still has homestead rights in the property. So the best course of action would be to make sure that your spouse is willing to execute a quitclaim deed, so that even though their name isn't on title, because they're legally your spouse at the time you own the property, we're making sure that they release any of their rights in the property.
Okay. Have you experienced that, Chris, or any of those issues, Janine, when you get you have a deal and then the spouse doesn't want to cooperate and sign? I have.
Yeah, I have. And you know what? We're dealing with one right now. So it's fun. So honestly, if I say get a prenup, I fully understand what you're getting yourself into, but I digress. That has nothing to do with real estate. The funniest one was the guy never lived in the house. She lived there for 3 years and he wanted 50% of the proceeds, so he was not going to sign. And she had to honor that in order for us to close the transaction, because she was moving out of state.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah.
In my world, really, because Florida is a common property state, not a community state. It frequently happens where one party is purchasing a new home prior to the marital settlement agreement, prior to the divorce completely being finalized, right? And whenever I hear that, it's not the end of the world. It happens all the time. It just, you really have to kind of pause at that point in the pre-approval process and make sure that both parties are on board, because the spouse isn't purchasing. Again, like, they need to be on board, because they will have to sign about 3 or 4 documents on a conventional loan and about 2 more on a government loan, just acknowledging that loan is occurring, because technically there is some homestead asset there. They actually have to sign our mortgage agreement. Now, that's not our promissory note. They don't owe us money, but they do have to sign the security instrument so that we have a clear path to the collateral. And what you don't want, and I've seen this happen in the past with other lenders, is there isn't that communication with the other, spouse, soon to be ex-spouse, at the front end of the process. Now we're 3 days away from closing and they're like, what do you mean I have to sign a mortgage? Like, that's not happening. Yeah. And it all blows up.
Yeah.
It all blows up.
Yeah, we just had that happen with a physician.
Yeah. So, it can be done. It happens very often. You really just need to communicate about what the expectations are on the front end, so that the other party isn't in total shock when the closing date is 24 hours away,
Yeah, that's the key part, because then we get calls the last minute, like, they're not signing, and we're like, we can't get a hearing on this before you're closing. So
yeah, Conti, I'm so glad you brought up that point, because when Chris said, making sure that there's those conversations happening early on, so it's not that someone's blindsided, because as you know, it takes time if someone's represented by an attorney. okay, well, we've got to send this mortgage over to your future ex-spouse. Their attorney has to review it and then advise you on what are the consequences, why you should or shouldn't sign this. And maybe there's conversations between the counsel, or their attorney is going to talk to somebody like Chris about the mortgage. Well, what does this mean for my client? Why should I advise them to sign that, right? So there is a lot of communication that needs to happen just so everyone is on the same page and understands what these documents mean before you can move forward.
No, and that's a good point, because it's an emergency. Well, not to the court.
Yeah.
It's an emergency for you, but for the court, your closing is not an emergency. Okay. You missing out on the closing, or there being a misunderstanding as it relates to the closing, is not an emergency for the court. So just want to make that clear. But this was great. It's been 30 minutes, guys. We've really hit a lot of topics. Hopefully we can come back and maybe do this on a cadence, maybe every couple of months, where we come back and we just kind of talk about the stats of the market and what's going on. But I want to give everyone a chance to kind of have some last words or any advice or information. And I want to make sure that our viewers get your contact information. So Jennifer, we're going to start with you because we have you up. Just any last thoughts, comments? How can people reach you? Let us know.
Yes, absolutely. I did have a couple comments that I wrote down. So one thing that I'm seeing now in this market, everyone was mentioning it's a balanced market. Interest rates are still a little high, but there's tricks and tips that we can use to make sure that deals are still happening. As a real estate attorney, I see a lot of creative financing, right? So I may see where I'm preparing seller financing documents if the home is owned free and clear, and that someone's doing seller financing as opposed to getting a traditional lender involved. I've also done a couple of transactions where people are assuming the loan. So some, VA loans, or there are a couple loan programs where the buyer can actually assume the prior owner's loan. And so I help a lot with those transactions, with helping people understand those documents. Or if it's a real estate investor who's maybe going to do something like a wraparound mortgage where they're not paying off the seller's mortgage, but they're getting an additional mortgage around it. So if you've got something where it's not as cookie cutter and you need somebody creative, I can get involved to help draft some of those documents and get some of those transactions closed. So if you want to get a hold of me, my phone number is 407-720-9350. And our website's super easy. It's just bondi.law.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. Chris, any last comments?
No, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for having us. It's been fun. Let's get back together. Let's do it again. The only thing I would say is I would reiterate, it's never too early. Now that we're not dinging credit anymore, or, we're not at least dinging it with a hard inquiry, it's never too early to begin the process. So, if people get scared, it's very unnerving to have to financially undress in front of a total stranger, right? It's not fun to talk about the hard stuff. But even if at the end of that call, you're not walking away with a pre-approval letter to go out and purchase, you're walking away with a plan, right? We're putting together a strategy for how to get there in the end. So it's never too early to begin the process. It's never too early to begin getting educated. Education is more important now than it has been in a very long time, which is why it's wonderful to do these things. So even if you're 2 years away, happy to talk to you. You can reach me at 321-239-7760. That's my personal cell phone. You can also text it. My website, very easy. It's my name, chrishardeman.com.
Make it easy. I love it. All right,
Yep.
Janine.
So I think what I want to leave you with is real estate is always local. Real estate is always emotional, and it's forever changing. And if you're not paying attention, you're going to miss a lot of opportunities. Like, stop listening to what everybody else is telling you. Go to the professionals. Ask questions. When you ask questions, trust me, you will find the answers, right? So I just hope people stop being scared and leaving money on the table, and stop holding yourself from investing in your future and building wealth for yourself and your family. If you guys have any real estate questions, I would love to just take some time and answer those for you. Again, the more educated you are, the more empowered you are to make great decisions. You can reach me at 407-595-8634. That is my personal cell. Or my website, www.alcimegroup.com. and you guys could request a meeting there.
All right. Thank you all so much for your time and for coming and talking to the viewers about mortgages, real estate, and the legal side of it as well. So I appreciate all of you. Again, my name is Conti Moore-Smith. I practice family law in the Central Florida area. And if you need help with divorce, custody, time sharing, we exclusively practice family law. You can reach us at 407-831-0203. Chris, Jennifer, Janine, thank you all so much for your time. Let's definitely do this again so that we can continue to educate everyone on what's going on and what they can do based on their circumstances. So thank you again for all of your time.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.